Hey there guys, and welcome back to Hursty Games, and welcome to a quick little video looking at some potentially very good sets of trios for FIFA 23 starter teams. We're going to be looking at 3 different sets of 3 cards that will all have chemistry links to each other across your FIFA 23 teams. So as you may or may not know, obviously the chemistry system is completely different in FIFA 23, and if you want a separate video going over that and me explaining how these sort of new links are going to work, then let me know in the comments down below. But overall, having 3 players from the same team and getting those links together will massively help your teams. So I've got 3 sets of players that I think are going to look pretty good at the start of FIFA 23 and will really suit starter teams. Now, obviously, it's very hard to know exact ratings, and it's very hard to know exactly what we can expect for FIFA 23 cards. But if these cards get the kind of ratings and stuff that I think they might do, then they could be very, very good and very viable at the start of the game. Obviously, I also have no concept of prices as well, but let's get into it. Let's see how we do, and let's look at some potentially very good cards for the start of the new game. Okay, we're going to start off in the Premier League, and we're going to look at a Man United trio. First up, we're going to look at Marcus Rashford. Now, Rashford was incredibly good at the start of FIFA 22, but I do expect him to get a pretty hefty downgrade. But I think this downgrade will make him potentially quite viable and quite affordable. I think his pace is going to be a bit of a shame in regards to early game accessibility. I think it will be a little bit pricey because of his pace, but I do think he'll be very good at the start of the game. The second player in this Man United trio is going to be Malacia. I think it said Malacia. Apologies if I'm saying it wrong. But the new left back who has joined from Feyenoord to Man United, I think is going to be pretty viable at the start of the game. A player with plenty of pace. I don't think he's particularly physical, but a chem star will easily fix that. Now, one thing worth bearing in mind is cards in FIFA 23, if they have no links to anyone else, their stats are their face stats. There's no minus stats in FIFA 23. So any form of chemistry will boost absolutely everything. Like if you manage to get the 3 links and get them on the max chemistry, which all of these trios will accomplish, then obviously his card is going to look pretty good. So that physicality, I think, will get a nice boost. His pace is going to be sort of hitting that 90 mark. And I think overall, you're looking at a pretty decent card, especially, as I say, in that early game. And I'm going to guess he's going to be a non-rare gold. So I don't think he'll be too crazy in like additional price just by being rare. And finally, a little bit of an out there one in regards to this will obviously, I think, firstly be affected by the rarity of the card. I'm guessing he's going to be a non-rare, but I'm going with Anthony Martial. Again, I think he is going to get a downgrade, although he's not had a bad start to his return to Man United. I do think that he'll get downgraded, but will be a pretty decent looking card at the start of the game. One of those cards that kind of just perfectly suits that early game of having, you know, mid 80s in regards to pace, decent shooting, very nice dribbling. I'm predicting him to get an 80 rated card, and again predicting it to be a non-rare. But I think Martial, like he was at the start of FIFA 22, like we said with Rashford, I think is going to be very viable. Also, being French is a nice link to other players getting a few soft links in regards to getting, you know, ticking a few boxes for that chemistry. If you've got some French players from other leagues and stuff as well, or you've got a French player from the Prem, or of course you're just looking at United players like we are in this trio, I think he's very viable, very usable, and hopefully not too expensive. I think he'll be one of those weird ones. If he is a rare, I think he will have a decent amount of pace, but him being a non-rare, I think at the start of the game, kind of like you looked at Armstrong from Southampton, I think he's going to be similar vibes, not quite as quick, but I think very, very good. Before we get into our second trio, let's have a quick word from today's video sponsor. Do you need some more coins for your FIFA Ultimate Team? Then look no further than U7Buy. They're the cheapest and most reliable place to get your FIFA Ultimate Team coins. And if you use code Hursty at checkout, you'll get yourself an extra discount. I want to say a massive thank you to U7Buy for sponsoring us. Don't forget that code Hursty. Now let's get back to the video. For our second batch of 3, we're going over to the Ligue 1. We're going to PSG, and we're going to start off with a player that I think is probably going to get a one to watch. That is RENATO Sanchez. Now, I think RENATO Sanchez is going to have some price to him. I don't think he's going to be cheap. I think he is going to be pretty pricey for the kind of card that you're looking at in regards to being an 80 rated card. But I think the one to watch value will obviously be up there quite substantially. However, his gold card, I think eventually will be one of those cards that sits at a really high price and then just plummets as soon as the game gets into a bit of a cycle. But I think RENATO Sanchez is a very, very good player and has got a good chance of getting informs while playing in a PSG side. But I do also think this card is incredibly viable. Guessing he's going to be an 80 rating, so looking at a somewhat similar-ish card to his card this year, but I think he's going to be incredibly good. I really do look forward to using RENATO SANCHES this year. I think he, for me, is one of those cards I really want to see on my starter team. Obviously staying with PSG, but we're also staying with Portuguese. We are going to be looking at NUNO MENDES up next, getting himself, I think, going to be a small upgrade, and I think, again, this is going to be not a crazy cheap card, but I don't think it's going to be as expensive as the card kind of looks and suggests. You're looking at a pretty quick player. Again, him just being as an absolute base, he's guaranteed decent pace. I'm guessing just below that 90, but with chemistry, even just with RENATO SANCHES on his own, obviously Portuguese, like in the Ligue 1, also playing for PSG, you're looking at easy chemistry there. But I think you're going to be looking at a card that's going to be pushing that mid 90 in regards to those pace speeds and pace stats. But also I think he's going to be pretty viable if you get a chem style on there, something like an anchor. You're going to be getting a nice healthy boost to the defense, the physicality, and you've got yourself an incredibly good starting left back. I think that this is a really good, like, perfect sort of link in regards to the new FIFA 23 chemistry, but I think this is a great start to this trio. And the final part of this trio, I've struggled a little bit in regards to finding a card that wasn't going to be crazy expensive. So I've gone with one that may seem a little underwhelming, but again, I think early doors, this will be very viable. I'm talking about Diallo, centre-back at PSG. 77 is what I've gone with. And I think that, again, stats-wise, this guy is probably going to be one of those slightly quicker centre-backs for the start of the game. Talking about 70 pace being quick for a centre-back feels weird when we're obviously below 90 sounds slow in FIFA 22, but for the start of the game, very viable, very usable, and again, just kind of ticks that third PSG spot. I think there's going to be a couple of players that will just be either just a tad slow. I think a lot of the PSG sort of midfielders and stuff look a tad slow in regards to what I think their stats are going to be looking like, but I think that Diallo is very viable as a trio and as a third option for that extra bit of chemistry for the PSG links and obviously the Ligue 1 links. But I think Diallo will be decent at the start of the game. I don't think he's going to be groundbreaking, but I think he'll definitely be worth picking up if you need that extra cheeky link. And for our final trio, we are off to the Bundesliga and we are at Bayern Munich. We're going to be talking about Upamecano up first. Getting him as an 81 is my prediction here. And again, I think for the start of the game, this is going to be an expensive card. We saw a bit of a pricey Upamecano at the start of this FIFA, and I think we're going to have a similar start this one. This isn't necessarily the cheapest of like all of these selections. I think there's a couple of ones that will start off pricey but will ease their way down into being OP sort of starter cards, which I think a lot of these cards are going to be very viable and very overpowered. And Upamecano for me is one of the top on that list of the cards we're looking at today. 82 pace is my prediction with some very healthy defense and physicality stats. Again, with the full chemistry, you're looking at him being that sort of low, high, mid, low, high, if that makes sense, 80 stats. And I think you're looking at a very viable centre-back. Again, if you throw an anchor on this card, you're looking at 90 pace on a centre-back at the start of the game. That sounds pretty crazy to me, and obviously very nice defensive stats as well. He technically would then start to look like an 86, 87 plus rated centre back, and I think as soon as you're starting to look at stats like that, it shows that this would be a very viable card. And the other cards we're going to be looking at are obviously just very helpful for getting him that chemistry. Player number 2 of this trio is going to be Musiala. Now, I think Musiala is a bit of a strange one. I think he's going to be one of those cards that at the start of the game, you see his starting rating on his card, and then you see his stats. And I don't think it's going to look like it adds up because he's got 1 or 2 higher stats. I think his dribbling is going to be through the roof for an 81 rated card, which is a big healthy upgrade for Musiala. I think he is going to prove to be one hell of a player. I think he's a very good bright young talent in the Bundesliga, and I personally think he is going to have a very good starting card. It's one of those that I think it's crucial to get a decent chem style at the start of the game. I think a catalyst for him and sort of running him as a aggressive box to box, or you could throw a shadow on him, and again you've got that really good dribbling to get it up to your forward and attacking players. But I think Musiala is a very viable card at the start of the game, and I do think he is going to have a tremendous season, and I don't think he'll be that expensive because of the lower pace, the not crazy high shooting, the physicality is quite low. I think the only thing that will potentially mark this card down is if he does get low stamina. As long as he's got decent stamina, I think Musiala again will be a very good starting card at the start of the game. And last but not least, another card that has transferred and it could potentially be a one to watch viable sort of option. It really does depend on how they pick their players, but GRAVENBERCH is going to be my third option for this trio, predicting him to get Again, a decent upgrade, but a non-rare 79 rated centre mid. I think he's going to be pretty versatile. Again, I think you're looking at a very good dribbling stat that sort of is that higher stat across everything else. Not crazy big on the defence. I would say, again, you could run something similar in regards to if you put like a shadow, or if you wanted to go with an anchor and have him be that sort of aggressive DM, like a deep lying CDM. Could be kind of what you go for. I think as a little trio, it would work best in a 3-man midfield, and if you sort of ran a DM and then someone like GRAVENBERCH, MUSIALA as your two sort of box-to-box style players that both have capabilities of coming back, I think it'll work really well. I think these cards will be very, very good. Obviously, early days, we're talking about metas and things that I don't know all of these metas and what the new metas are going to be. But from a lot of what I've seen about the new games, dribbling does seem to be quite important. So GRAVENBERCH and MUSIALA would fit into what would be a dribble heavy meta, and a lot of sort of, you know, picking that ball up and then laying it off to your attackers and having them do the dirty work of scoring the goals. But I think this is a very, very viable trio. One player that did miss out is their new signing as a right back, Missouri, I think is how you say his name. I think he's going to be a little bit higher rated, and I don't know, I just wanted to include the GRAVENBERCH MUSIALA because I think MUSIALA especially, I think a lot of people are going to overlook at the start of the game, and I think he has got real good potential. But those are my 3 trios of potentially very strong starting perfect link cards, and you know, with the new chemistry system in FIFA 23, I think these 3 trios could be very, very viable for you. And if you agree, and if you like the sound of this video and you enjoyed this and you want to see more, then it really, really would be appreciated by dropping a like on this video. It supports me, the video, the channel, everything all out. So thank you so much for the support. If you're new, hit that sub button and turn notifications on to be told anytime that we upload a video. If you want to catch us on live streams, it's Hursty Games over on Twitch. There's a link down below in the description. And while you're there, make sure you check out and show some love to our channel sponsors. Thank you again for supporting the channel. But that's it from me. I've been Tom. You guys are awesome, and I'll see you very soon. The card says, and of course, wash your hands.
Nah, his name is Hursty. Slap bald head, yeah, it'll probably hurt me. Bang top bins, it'll probably hurt you. Ginger, streamer, platform, YouTube. Drop a name in the chat, or say hello. Entertain, yeah, you already know. Capital H, yeah, I'ma read it slow. Hursty Games, yeah, you already know.